In the Middle Ages, torture was not only a method of punishment, it was a tool for control, fear, and terror. The most horrific methods of torture were used to extract confessions, force obedience, or punish the guilty, real or imagined. The following are the 5 worst and most brutal forms of torture that were used during this dark period in history. 1. The breaking wheel. One of the most terrifying and gruesome methods of execution, the breaking wheel, was a display of pure brutality. Victims were often beaten with heavy iron bars, their limbs shattered and bent in unnatural positions, before being strapped to a large wooden wheel. The wheel was then hoisted up and placed on a pole, leaving the victim to die a slow, agonizing death. Sometimes, the victim would be left hanging for public display, their broken body a terrifying warning to others. The wheel symbolized suffering, but the death it brought was even worse. It was a public spectacle, designed to break not only the body but the spirit of those who witnessed it. To be chosen for the wheel was to face an inevitable and excruciating fate. 2. The Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden is one of the most iconic forms of medieval torture, though its true origins are still debated by historians. The device was a coffin-like structure, with sharp metal spikes lining the interior. The victim would be locked inside, and the door would slowly close, driving the spikes into their flesh. The pain was unbearable, and death was usually slow, with the victim bleeding out over hours or even days. The Iron Maiden was not only used to inflict physical agony but also to break the victim's mind. The claustrophobic space, combined with the pain of being impaled, created a terror unlike anything else. The victim's screams would often be heard echoing through the chambers, making it an instrument of mental destruction as well. 3. The rack. The rack was a device of unimaginable agony. The victim's body was tied to the apparatus, and the limbs were stretched beyond their natural limits. The rack would slowly tighten, pulling at the arms, legs, and torso, dislocating joints and tearing muscles. The pain was so intense that many victims would confess to crimes they never committed just to escape the unbearable torment. For those who survived, the damage was permanent. Dislocated joints, broken bones, and torn ligaments would leave the victim severely disabled for life. The rack was often used as a tool for obtaining confessions, but it was also a way of demonstrating the power of the torturer over the victim's body and mind. 4. The Judas cradle. A particularly cruel method of torture. The Judas cradle involved a sharp, pyramid-shaped seat. The victim would be lowered onto the point of the pyramid, often with their hands and feet bound. The victim would then be left to sit on the point for hours or even days, causing excruciating pain as the sharp tip pierced the body. The victim's weight would cause the point to slowly penetrate deeper, leading to severe internal injury and often death. The Judas cradle was especially brutal because it could continue to torture the victim long after the initial pain. Many victims would endure not just physical torment, but also psychological terror, knowing that every moment they remained alive was a moment filled with endless suffering. 5. The thumbscrew. The thumbscrew was a simple yet excruciatingly painful device. The victim's thumb would be placed inside a small metal screw, and the device would be tightened slowly. The thumbscrews would crush the bones in the victim's thumb, causing unbearable pain. The torturer would slowly twist the screw, allowing the victim to feel each bone crack under the pressure. Although it was often used to extract confessions or information, the thumbscrew was also used as a punishment for minor offenses. It was a terrifying reminder of how small and seemingly insignificant actions could result in horrific pain. The psychological torment of knowing that the device could be applied at any moment created a constant fear of the torturer. These were the 5 worst forms of medieval torture, each designed not only to inflict physical pain but to break the human spirit. The Middle Ages were a time of unimaginable suffering, and these methods were just the beginning of the many ways in which people were subjected to terror. Torture was not only about punishing the guilty, it was about reminding everyone of their vulnerability in a world ruled by fear, violence, and superstition. If this is the kind of history you want to hear, subscribe to Medieval Decay. Which of these tortures do you think was the most brutal? Let us know in the comments.